often discussed around campfires and conspiracy forums alike. Cryptids are creatures with mystery tied around their existence, with deep folklore stemming hundreds to even thousands of years. These creatures have inspired music from some of the world's greatest artists. Today, we're diving into these strange, often captivating songs, and exploring the history behind the cryptids that inspired them. Genesis. Squonk. Genesis is a progressive turned pop rock band, originally formed in Surrey, United Kingdom. Toting 15 studio albums across nearly 30 years, they're known for their musical evolution, transforming from a pioneering prog rock outfit to astounding commercial success. Following the departure of their frontman Peter Gabriel in 1975, drummer Phil Collins would then take the reins as lead vocalist and propel Genesis into a new musical era. In 1976, Genesis released their first album without Gabriel, titled A Trick of the Tail, track 3 being dubbed Squonk. Squonk showcases Collins' vocal ability, the first song that really defined him as the permanent fit for the role. It is also a retelling of a myth about a hunter attempting to capture America's saddest cryptid. The Squonk is a mythical creature whose stories originated in Pennsylvania. They are small and misshapen, skin loose and ill-fitting, covered in moles and warts. Ashamed of its malformed, almost pig-like appearance, the Squonk cries, weeping so much that it leaves behind a trail of tears. Squonks are nocturnal, roaming the Pennsylvanian forests at night. Cited in William T. Cox's fantasy field guide, Fearsome Creatures of the Lumberwoods, as a tale of Squonk hunter J.P. Wentling. Wentling, being the skilled hunter he was, tracked an elusive squonk on a misty moonlit evening. Vigilantly, he followed the trail of tears, mimicking its soft, mournful cries. The squonk, drawing closer to the call of a potential ally, is lured ever closer to Wentling. Suddenly, captured in a sack. Incessantly, the squonk cries as Wentling begins his journey home. After some time, the sack begins to lighten, with the sobbing coming to a cease. An inspection results in nothing but a puddle of tears and bubbles remaining. The squonk, having completely dissolved itself with no other option of escape. The origination of the squonk can be leveraged as a metaphor for loneliness and lumber work. The field often involves isolation away from family, coupled with an arduous work environment. For many, this resulted in exhaustion, even depression, a feeling very similar to that of the squonk. Lumberjacks would often spin tales around the campfire as a means to pass the time and provide companionship. These tales would involve the many mysterious sounds of the forest, a squonk likely being conjured up in the process. Genesis's Squonk gives further meaning to a similar context, a tale of how one can perceive themselves harshly, with their only source of trust resulting in betrayal. A betrayal such as the one depicted from mother to child in Bruce Springsteen's A Night with the Jersey Devil. Bruce Springsteen is an American rock singer, songwriter, and guitarist who has released over 25 studio albums over the last 5 decades. He's renowned for his poetic lyrics that often depict working-class American life, and his energetic marathon live performances with the E Street Band. Springsteen toted an immensely successful career, selling over 140 million records, winning 20 Grammys, as well as being immortalized in the Rock and Roll and Songwriters Hall of Fame. On October 31st, 2008, on his website, he would release A Night with the Jersey Devil, accompanied by a handwritten note stating, "Dear friends and fans, if you grew up in Central or South Jersey, you grew up with the Jersey Devil. Here's a little musical Halloween treat. Have fun." What resulted was a bullet mic-laden, blues-harboring tune, citing inspiration from an all-time classic riff on Muddy Waters' Hoochie Coochie Man. The lyrics recall New Jersey's most famous cryptid, the Jersey Devil, said to call the Pine Barrens of South Jersey home. This story originates in 1735, for in those very Pine Barrens resided a woman, often referred to as Mother Leeds. Mother Leeds had given birth to a total of 12 children prior, the 13th being on the way. Pregnant yet again, Mother Leeds cursed the child in frustration, uttering, "The devil can take this one," while giving birth. Although born healthy and normal, the child began to shift, contort, and transform into something horrific. It adopted large bat-like wings, hooves, a horse head with horns, clawed arms, and a forked tail. Abruptly, the creature then escaped, flying through the chimney with a wailing high-pitched screech. Although easily dismissed as a tall tale, Jersey Devil sightings are much more common than one may think. In the early 19th century, naval officer and war hero Stephen Decatur encountered the cryptid during a visit to the Hanover Millworks to inspect cannonballs being forged for him. When witnessing a large flying creature in the sky, he fired a cannonball in its direction, allegedly leaving a hole in its wing, which didn't seem to faze the creature at all. Decatur, being a highly regarded naval officer who was known for daring exploits and bravery, was held to a very high regard. Knowing this, Stephen would still speak openly to his officers and peers about the strange experience. Around 1820, Joseph Bonaparte, the older brother of Napoleon, claimed to have seen a winged creature while hunting in Bordentown, New Jersey. In 1909, over a century after the legend began, newspapers published hundreds of claims involving encounters with the Jersey Devil during the week of January 16th. These events included police firing on the creature, thwarting an attack on a trolley car, finding unidentified footprints in the snow, forcing schools to shut down, and ushering warnings for citizens to stay home. Hunting parties set out, exploring the Pine Barrens to search and kill the devil, only to come up empty-handed. Countless sightings and encounters with the Jersey Devil have been reported over the last 100 years. Allegedly, the devil appears in 7 to 13-year cycles, ushering bad omens. After an appearance, repercussions can be seen in the form of drought, bad harvests, and even missing livestock. For Springsteen, this song immortalizes a quintessential piece of his New Jersey childhood. Quintessential folklore like this can also be found across the Atlantic in Judas Priest's Lochness. Judas Priest is a heavy metal group formed out of Birmingham, England. Pioneers, defining the new wave of British heavy metal with their dual lead guitarists under Rob Halford's operatic vocal range. Judas Priest would go on to leave a highly respected stamp on the heavy metal scene forever. In 2005, on their 15th album, Angel of Retribution, Rob Halford would make an appearance as a feature after his departure from the band in 1992. This culminated into the marathon closer, Lochness. Lochness depicts the elusiveness and mystery tied to one of the most famous cryptids of all time, the Loch Ness Monster. Earliest reports of the Loch Ness Monster go much farther back than you may think. Reference back in 6th century AD, where Irish monk and traveling missionary, St. Columba, observed a settlement burying a man by the River Ness, the river stemming from the loch or lake of the same name. In inquiring about the man's death, the settlement relayed that the man was swimming in the river, when suddenly he was viciously attacked by a water beast, who mauled him and dragged him underwater. Without worry, Columba sent one of his disciples to swim across the river and fetch a boat on the opposite bank. During this venture, the foretold monster appeared, readying a means of attack on the swimming monk. Without hesitation, Columba made the sign of the cross, uttering, "Thou shalt go no further, nor touch the man. Go back with all speed." When hearing the words of the Lord, the beast fled. Fast forward centuries later, and you can account for multiple sightings, the most notable being in the 1930s, where local Scottish newspaper, the Inverness Courier, published an article written by a water bailiff, or law enforcement officer of Loch Ness, Alex Campbell. Campbell would discuss a sighting from local hotel manageress, Aldi McKay, and her husband, who reported seeing an enormous creature rolling in the water of the loch. An excerpt from the article states, "The creature disported itself, rolling and plunging for fully a minute, its body resembling that of a whale, and the water cascading and churning like a simmering cauldron." Numerous sightings followed, and the story of the Loch Ness Monster became a media phenomenon. Letters began appearing in the Courier, often anonymously, claiming land or water sightings by the writer, their family, or acquaintances. Now reaching national news, reports would find a multitude of ways to describe this creature: monster fish, sea serpent, dragon, and even Nessie, a diminutive of Nis, the Gaelic name for Loch Ness. Eventually, the most popularized name was settled on Loch Ness Monster. In 1934, Robert Kenneth Wilson, a London gynecologist, would produce the image famously tied to the creature, dubbed the surgeon's photo. Dr. Wilson described the monster as having a small head and a swan-like neck protruding 3 feet above the surface of the water. This picture led some to speculate that Nessie was a solitary survivor of the long-extinct plesiosaurus, thought to have died off 65 million years ago. For 60 years, the photo was considered evidence of the monster's existence, but in 1994, it was revealed that the surgeon's photograph was a hoax, the monster being a plastic and wooden head attached to a toy submarine. Despite the confirmed hoax, tourists still flock to Lochness, hoping to capture a glimpse of Nessie, Scotland's harborer of the deep. While the shores of Loch Ness may not harbor the fabled Nessie, they are home to another creature, spoken on in Jethro Tull's Kelpie. Jethro Tull is a progressive, folk, and hard rock band that originated in Bedfordshire, UK. With a unique and complex style, they housed a vast sonic array of genres, fitting within the classic rock umbrella. On 1979's Stormwatch, the last album with their iconic 70s lineup, lies Kelpie, a song covering the malevolent cryptid by the same name. Kelpies are a mythical water spirit that have been a staple in Scottish mythology, living in bodies of water such as lochs, rivers, and streams. Kelpies are shapeshifters that commonly use the form of a captivating, beautiful black horse. As their beauty is so compelling, the Kelpie leverages its looks to attract unsuspecting humans. On the outside, the Kelpie seems to have a friendly nature, but don't be mistaken. This spirit is a malevolent and deceptive being, shifting their form for an evil intent. The Kelpie draws its human victims to the water's edge. Once contact is made, the Kelpie will adhere to the human like an adhesive, diving into the water to drown them. In some cases, Kelpies take their victims into the water and devour them, throwing their entrails to the water's edge. Although often depicted in their horse form, Kelpies do have a desire to appear in human form, taking refuge on the river's edge, on rocks, or within streams. Almost every sizable body of water in Scotland is tied to the tale of a Kelpie, but the most widely spoken is that of the Kelpie in Loch Ness, a local tale from the early 1800s, which tells of a Kelpie who haunted the shores and woods. The Kelpie wore a fine saddle and bridle. Local, James McGregor, would one day come upon the Kelpie. He was cautionary, knowing of the local tales well, taking the Kelpie by surprise and cutting the Kelpie's bridle with his large claymore sword. As the bridle was the Kelpie's source of his life and powers, this came as a shock, becoming irate, thrashing at McGregor, cursing him with the inability to enter his home. McGregor, with his newly attained powers, sprinted home at a tremendous speed, the Kelpie just a few steps behind. Although he could not enter the home, McGregor tossed the bridle through an open window, thus outwitting the creature. Ashamed, angered, and powerless, the Kelpie slunk off into the night and was never seen again. Thanks to McGregor's cunning, this relic was passed down throughout his bloodline, with no one going missing from the shores of Loch Ness ever again. Though Kelpies have very few weaknesses, allegedly a Kelpie can be killed by being shot with a silver bullet, oddly similar to the cryptid depicted in Warren Zevon's Werewolves of London. Warren Zevon is an American rock singer-songwriter that is most known for his distinctive, sardonic, and unique songwriting ability. Considered one of his best albums in his discography, Excitable Boy housed Zevon's most famous song to date, Werewolves of London. Zevon takes a dark yet humorous approach on depicting the exploits of a werewolf, experiencing nights on the town in London and London's surrounding area, eating Chinese food, running rampant, and mutilating humans along the way. The lore of werewolves are such a prolific legend that they go back before Jesus Christ. In 2100 BC, the Epic of Gilgamesh is an ancient Sumerian poem, named after the main character and hero, who embarks on a quest for immortality. Within its pages, Gilgamesh refuses to become the lover of goddess Ishtar, due to her cruel treatment of a prior suitor, a shepherd, whom she transformed into a wolf. Later, the god Zeus would turn King Lycaon into a wolf, a punishment for trying to trick Zeus into eating human entrails. Even hundreds of years later, it was generally believed that lycanthropy, or the supernatural transformation of a human to wolf, was truth. In 426 AD, well-regarded Christian philosopher and bishop, Augustine of Hippo, also known as Saint Augustine, wrote, "It is generally believed that, by certain witches' spells, men may be turned into wolves." With such strong belief systems existing over centuries, it should come as no surprise that tales of the werewolf were carried into European folklore throughout the Middle Ages. During this period, more root causes of transformation were developed. Allegedly, a man could turn into a wolf by removing their clothes and donning a belt made of wolfskin. Those with cannibalistic tendencies would offer satanic allegiance to satiate their hunger and become a wolfman, carrying out their sinister deeds. Norse folklore would highlight a father and son donning wolfskins, attaining the physical attributes of the wolf and becoming Ulfhednar, or wolf warriors, similar to Norse berserkers, who would relish in these tales, embracing a primal rage on the battlefield. Europe would substantially propel the concept of lycanthropy, becoming an epicenter for developing the folklore. In the 16th and 17th centuries, as part of the infamous European witch hunts, multiple men were tried for being werewolves, burned, confined, and executed for their murderous and ill-intentioned crimes. In the 18th and 19th centuries, the concept of werewolves took on a more modern adaptation. They developed a vulnerability to silver, more specifically a silver bullet, in novels such as Bram Stoker's Dracula's Guest. Arriving in 1935, the feature film Werewolf of London would depict English botanist Wilfred Glendon being attacked and bitten by a feral humanoid creature. While nurturing a rare plant acquired in Tibet with artificial moonlight, he begins to grow fur and develop an insatiable urge to kill. The movie follows his exploits in the race to try and find a way back to his human form. Rich in history, werewolves have been a staple within the cryptid universe since their inception, prevalent in books and film for much of our modern age. These creatures immortalized through tales wrapped in violence and fear for thousands of years. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to like, subscribe, and drop me a comment about any cryptids or cryptids and songs that you may know about. We drop videos every Wednesday, so I hope to see you in the next one soon. When Warren Zevon said, "Oh," that really resonated with me.